But once you see the pregnancy test and it's positive, that's when it makes it all worth it. All those sore bumps you get on your hips or, butt muscle closer to the hip area, it goes away after you're done with the injections. And then now knowing the baby is there and there's a confirmed heartbeat, it just makes it all worth it.
Welcome to our special holiday episode of the Surrogacy Scoop, a podcast brought to you by Patriot Conceptions, where we demystify the world of surrogacy from the clinical, family, and surrogate perspective. Today, I'm joined by Sunny Garten, Surrogate Coordinator at Patriot Conceptions, and currently on her third journey as a surrogate. I cannot wait to dig into her journey and gain insight into the unique perspective of an experienced surrogate. Sunny, welcome to the show.
Hello, how are you?
I am great. How are you doing today?
Doing well. Thank you for asking.
Awesome. Well, I do really just want to dig in and hear about your story today. So maybe as far back as you want to go, let's learn a little bit about you and how you got involved with surrogacy.
Cool. So what piqued my interest in learning more information about wanting to become a surrogate was when I was around 20 years old, I found out I was pregnant and I went to work very emotional. So I started crying and my manager came up to me asking me what was going on. So I told him I was pregnant and I don't know if I was really ready to be a mother or if me and my spouse were ready. And he explained to me a story about him and his wife dealing with infertility and the journey they went through and how they weren't able to have children of their own. And he offered if he could adopt the baby. So I went home that night thinking about it because the position I was in, I was just so young and not ready. Of course, we didn't move forward and I kept my daughter with my spouse. But when it came later on down the road after I had my son, I found out that there is surrogacy out there and there's embryos created to the intended parent's genes. So it's their egg and their sperm, which piqued my interest again on wanting to be pregnant and carry a pregnancy for intended parents who cannot conceive. So that being said, I completed the application for surrogacy and became a surrogate.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Maybe could you talk a little bit about each of your journeys as a surrogate?
Mhm. So my first surrogacy journey, I would have to say, was very nervous and very exciting. It was something new, even though I was told the process. Every time I moved to a new processing step, like being medically cleared to legal, it was all a new experience. And just knowing that there was going to be more steps to it, I was very anxious. So my first surrogacy, it went slow. Just because I was like, all right, when is the next step? When can we move forward? Matching with the intended parent for my first journey, I matched with an intended father who was single. And he was more like professional instead of just being like having that connection. So as I went through that first surrogacy, it was a very professional connection. And when it came time for labor and delivery, he had a nanny come pick up the baby due to the COVID time. There was restrictions for traveling. So he needed someone in the United States to come get the baby. And the baby stayed in the United States for about, I think, 2 or 3 months before it was able to go to China to get a passport and birth certificate there as well. So first journey, I would say went pretty good, but I knew on my second journey what I really wanted to look for while moving forward with my second. So I wanted a connection with the intended parents, and I also wanted them to be in the labor delivery room. So on the Zoom, when I did for the second journey on the Zoom, I did a intro, but I also gave what I wanted for this journey to happen. I wanted the intended parents to be more involved while I was pregnant, doing FaceTime Zooms with intended parents while at the OB visits. We also FaceTime and Zoomed for the embryo transfer while the doctor was doing the transfer. We had the intended parents, my fiance, and me on the FaceTime. And it was a very emotional time while the doctor was doing the transfer. And after the transfer, the pregnancy was confirmed. As we move along, the intended parents, they flew in at 36 weeks of my pregnancy. Not that I was going to deliver them, but they wanted to make sure that they were there for delivery. And after they flew in, we did a hospital tour, planned out having each room next to each other for postpartum. She was there, the intended mother and the father, in the labor delivery room. She was on my left side, and the intended father was like on the back. He didn't really want to get too close, but she was there holding my hand on the left side, and my spouse was on the right side. And they're both squeezing my hand, and she's crying over here, just tears of joy. And then as I'm pushing, she's trying to push too. You can see in her face. It was so precious. And then once the baby came out, she was just filled with overjoy and was shaking. It was a surreal moment. And she got to cut the umbilical cord with her spouse. Something I will cherish forever was that moment, and seeing her face for like what was on her face of joy was just something I'll never forget. So that was the second journey. For the third journey, I would have to say this one's going pretty smooth. I'm currently 33 weeks pregnant, and the intended father plans on coming at 37 weeks and doing the hospital tour as well. I would recommend that surrogates that are close to delivery plan out that the intended parents travel to before they deliver.
Yeah, that's so much insight you just shared with us. And thank you for sharing the differences between those journeys. I feel like that's, you never really know, or maybe you can only know so much when you're walking into something like this. I feel like that insight is really helpful. What things along each of your journeys, as you just said, you're along your third, what things have gotten easier with each surrogacy or, yeah, surrogacy you've done so far?
I would say it gets easier with surrogacy the more times you do surrogacy. Not saying everyone's going to go do another journey, but as like a second time or third time surrogate, you're more familiar with the steps. So they just kind of go really quickly, and you're more prepared, and knowing the legal steps and medical that could follow behind, you're just aware. The first time it's always going to be bumpy because you're unaware and the process could seem like new to you. So that could be challenging for a first time surrogate, but the more journeys you do, the easier it gets.
Yeah, maybe if you could dive in a little bit deeper into the legal aspect. We haven't really touched on that on the podcast quite yet at the time of recording this. So could you share a little insight into what that legal aspect is and how it got easier?
So when it comes to moving forward with the legal process, usually they have the intended parents look over a draft, and the draft will be overviewed by the intended parent's lawyer and the lawyer and the intended parents themselves. Then they'll send that draft over to the surrogate's lawyer for the surrogate and her lawyer to go over. And they usually do a phone consultation with the lawyer to go over the red draft. Same goes with the intended parents once that red draft gets sent over back to the intended parents. Then from there, once both parties agree with the amending and changing, then they'll move forward with getting it signed and notarized on both sides, the intended parent side and the surrogate side. Then once notarized, then they'll move forward with the lawyer writing email to the IVF clinic to legally clear them to move forward with the embryo transfer.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. I think that definitely just kind of puts things in perspective as to how multiple reps of that would make it a lot easier. You know what you're looking for, you know what you're going to see. And something you mentioned earlier that I think I want to dig into a little bit as well is your loved ones. You mentioned your partner earlier, you have a family of your own. How has your loved ones impacted your journey as a surrogate? Kind of how did that work for you?
So when it came time for support from my loved ones, I would say like my fiance, my mother, my mother-in-law, and my kids, they are very supportive, especially when it comes time for the third trimester when you're just really tired and you want to sleep and the adventures of going out to the parks kind of slow down. it does become challenging for them because they always want to do something, but you're just so tired. And I tend to see my kids understand that when I get around the third trimester, they do help. Like they'll help me put on my socks or my slippers, or my fiance will help me do laundry or put the kids to bed. My mom will watch the kids, same with his mother will watch the kids as well. So the support is great. I think they definitely do understand the aspect of mommy's carrying a baby for someone else, and we really want to help, and they understand the dream of giving the gift of life to intended parents, especially now after the second journey, when the intended mother came at the doorstep and she thanked the kids for allowing me to carry the baby for them, and then showed the baby to the kids. It really just showed them at that aspect that this is what the whole process was about. And this baby will go to these parents. And it was a very emotional time. She gave them a hug and some gifts. And I would have to say that was like the best part I dealt with in surrogacy, was seeing that too.
Yeah, wow,
Mhm.
that's kinda striking me right now as something super emotional. Wow, I mean, it's so incredible. I think that from everything you just said, you have such an incredible support system, even your kids helping out, and then that intended parent kind of reframing that for your family and especially your kids. I imagine that that was a really impactful experience for them as well.
It was. It truly was.
Kind of bouncing off that last point there, what is, in your experience, what kind of goes down after you have the baby? What is like the next steps from there? And what does your life kind of look like after that?
It really depends on the connection that you gain with the intended parents after the baby is born. Of course, postpartum is something we have to deal with as surrogates on healing or getting our body back to normal. But the communication you will have with the intended parents just depends. Like if you wanted to see photos of the baby, maybe like 6 months or a year after, that really on what relationship you built with the intended parents. I know with the first one, first surrogacy, again, it was more professional. So I rarely speak to that intended parent. And then with my second surrogacy journey, they send me pictures all the time. They'll keep me updated. They'll ask me how I'm doing or how the kids are doing. So it's just a great, lovely experience.
Hmm. Yeah, and you touched on it a little bit earlier, but is that kind of relationship that you just described in your second journey with the intended parents something that you're looking for when you do future surrogacy journeys?
Yes, so I do plan, like, as future surrogacies, looking for that same relationship because that's what I'm comfortable with. For other surrogates, it really just depends on what they feel comfortable with. If they are wanting to just say their updates and then that's it. But for me, I'm looking for more connection and for the intended parent to be hands on.
Again, sharing that perspective, I think just hearing your opinions, you've done this. I mean, this is your third time. You obviously know your way around the surrogacy world, especially as well working as a surrogate coordinator. Something I've been a little curious about maybe this whole time. How do you feel like your role as being a surrogate coordinator has been influenced by your personal experience being a surrogate mother yourself?
So I would have to say being a surrogate and a surrogate coordinator is great for the I would say for the new surrogates and for reoccurring surrogates because I can better explain how the process is going to go for them. And then while being a surrogate, I can experience surrogacy too on the same level. It is a lot of balancing from the work to being pregnant, but I have to say I really love my job and helping out the surrogates too during their process and seeing, the baby being born and their intended parents being happy just really makes all the work worth it.
Yeah, that's really, I think maybe that piece of, you literally are in on the ground with them, you know exactly what they're going through, or at least can empathize a lot to exactly what they're going through. I'm sure that makes you a like completely invaluable resource at your job and your role. Yeah, that experience is so awesome. Maybe let's kind of stick on that, you know, your experience perspective a little bit. How do you feel like surrogacy has impacted you? Maybe as deep as you want to go with that.
Surrogacy has impacted me in a very positive way. Or I would have to say, like, before when I first started surrogacy, I was just unsure but excited to help. But now it has helped me financially. It's also helped my general outview of dreams do come true. They do come true when it comes time for like seeing the intended parents get the gift of life and receive their dreams. Because before I was just like, all right, do dreams come true? But being a surrogate, I actually see it. So I definitely think it's just a beautiful aspect for the surrogate and intended parents to experience together. Yeah, that's pretty much my perspective for it.
It's so, and this is something that I feel like comes up in a lot of these conversations where I find myself thinking as I interview, you know, people all throughout the surrogacy world, is how selfless the role of a surrogate mother really is. How much of yourself, you know, physically, obviously, but mentally, and then your time and, you know, everything in your life is disrupted because of this. And that selflessness is so beautiful and so incredible. Yeah, I'm really amazed by surrogates. I feel like you are all doing such a task that not everybody is up for. And so the fact that you're doing it and you're able to do it is really incredible.
Thank you. Appreciate that you said that. It means a lot. Yeah, it is like it takes time being a surrogate. It's time consuming, especially when it comes time for taking the injections. That's not such an easy part, but once you see the pregnancy test and it's positive, that's when it makes it all worth it. All those sore bumps you get on your hips or, butt muscle closer to the hip area, it goes away after you're done with the injections. And then now knowing the baby is there and there's a confirmed heartbeat, it just makes it all worth it.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. It's so, like I said, unique, but also so selfless that you're able to do that. Maybe kind of staying within that realm a little bit, I want to ask you kind of a two-part question. What is maybe advice that you would give to a future intended parent? And then also, what advice would you give to somebody who's about to embark on their first surrogacy journey?
So, advice I would give for his first time surrogate is the process. There is a lot of processing steps. When it comes time to doing each processing step, surrogacy is not fast, it's very slow on each step. So, it does take time. And then when it comes time for being pregnant, to plan out the delivery with the intended parents is very important because it's better to have them there than not there and then worry about, well, do I have to have a nanny come take the baby who will, be taking care of this baby, or will it be on the surrogate to take care of? Just really depends. Planning out the delivery is the best option. Having the intended parent show up a week ahead before you think you're going to deliver. And then for intended parents, I would have to say being supportive, which most of them are, but being there for delivery for the surrogate is important so they can see their son or daughter enter into this world.
Yeah, that's completely invaluable insight, I would say. And then you did touch a little bit earlier on about your loved ones and their impact on your surrogacy journey. What advice or, you know, what would you tell to the loved one of a surrogate as they embark on this journey?
I would say a lot of surrogates go through hormones, pregnancy hormones. It fluctuates. So one day they will be happy or sad or mad. Just be emotionally supportive towards the surrogate, besides just helping around the house, but being that person she can talk or listen to, or you can talk and listen to, would be the main support for a surrogate.
Are there any, or maybe moments or things that stand out that your family has done for you or your loved ones have done for you throughout your journeys?
I would have to say my fiance, he's pretty good with helping out on the chores or helping me get up from bed because now I'm in third trimester. My kids, they are understanding. So when it comes time for doing activities, they know I'll walk slower or I'll just be more tired. So they do understand that. My daughter, she always re-incites, oh, mommy's pregnant. So we have to be careful how we do this, or we can't do this today. And it's just like, so that shows
Wow.
her support, and she's older, so she has like a better understanding that the pregnancy is getting further along. And then for the mothers or just like any other family members, they do understand too. So when it comes time for someone watching the kids, they are always hands on wanting to watch the kids without even a question.
Yeah, I imagine that that support network, even maybe as your role as a coordinator, is something that you're looking for to make sure that the surrogate mother has that support, or at least, people surrounding her in her life to, like you said, just be there.
Hmm. Yes, when I do screening calls with surrogates, I make sure they have support. It's very important. And I do get a question here and there from some new surrogates like, why would I need support? Well, when you get further along in pregnancy, things do get kind of harder. You're more tired, or even for the embryo transfer, you need someone to be there to help you get snacks or food while you're on bed rest or doing the injections. Um, I had my spouse help me with the injections. Yes, you could take it yourself and self administer the injections, but it always helps having someone self administer the injection for you um, if you can't reach it or you get too sore. So it definitely helps to have support during those times.
Yeah, I didn't even consider like the that aspect of it, early stages where, yeah, you're doing at home injections or even you're driving back and forth from medical offices frequently. Um, just the ability to rely on somebody, I imagine, is like 100% necessary in those situations.
Yes, exactly.
We've heard a lot and talked a lot about the, positive influences, obviously, that your loved ones have had. What do you think are, from your perspective, the challenges trying to balance being pregnant, being a surrogate mother with your loved ones?
The challenges I would have to say would be hmm, there's not many challenges, but the most challenge I would have to say again would be the third trimester. Getting further along and just getting tired and sleeping a lot more is one of the biggest challenges later down the road. But I always tell my kids this isn't going to last forever. Third trimester is fairly short and eventually it'll end and they'll get their mommy back and we can do adventures.
That's so cute. Your kids being involved is adorable. How old are your kids?
My daughter, she is 6 and my son is 5.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. I feel like that's a lot of I honestly expected them to be older. I feel like they have a lot of maturity, having the ability to like understand that. And
Mhm.
your daughter even kind of sticking up for you, saying mommy's pregnant. That's so incredible. I feel like you have such a incredible little family around you. It's so nice to hear.
Yes, my daughter, she's very nosy, so she picks up on things right away. I tend to realize I'll have a conversation and she'll pick it up like, "Oh, you mentioned this." And I'm like, "Oh, shoot, that wasn't even meant for you to hear." So that's why she picked up
Yeah,
on
how'd you know that?
yeah. That's why she picked up on surrogacy so quickly because she is so nosy. Why she was like, okay, mommy's carrying a baby for someone else, especially after the intended mother showed my daughter and my son, here's the baby. And it's, thank you for allowing your mommy to carry. So she, after that point, she now knows like this baby I'm currently carrying is going to be for intended father.
Wow. That
Mhm.
is that's just so incredible. I like, wow. I almost like am speechless a little bit. That's so cool that you just that your daughter's like that, so intuitive. Maybe she'll follow in your footsteps one day.
Never know.
So as we kind of round out this conversation a little bit, I feel like we've gained so much valuable insight from you today. Maybe, what are some final thoughts you have about surrogacy? Maybe your loved ones, their perspective, just some parting words for us today.
My final thoughts of surrogacy is when I was a first time surrogate, or even before I thought I was going to be a surrogate, I took fertility as not to an advantage, but I just thought most people dealt with fertility and it wasn't a big issue. But realizing what the intended parents stand in, the infertility and the rough road they go through is something that I'll never take for granted, having fertility. And because of that, I would say surrogacy really does help intended parents who deal with infertility because the road they went through it wasn't easy and it took them years to even make a decision on finding a surrogate. So if you
Mhm.
are interested in surrogacy, it's a really serious process. It's something that you can't just switch your mind out when you're in the legal process. It has to be 100% confirmed decision on yourself to move forward.
Well, great. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you so much for all the invaluable insight you gave us today on our special, warm and fuzzy holiday episode.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope to see you in the next episode.
sounds good.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Surrogacy Scoop, and I hope you found value in this meaningful conversation. For all resources mentioned in the episode, or to connect with Patriot Conceptions online, visit the description. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast hosting platform and share this episode with those in your life who may be interested in getting involved.